there. I was talking the other night, I was emailing with one of my favorite people. She might just be the person that put me on to the Markle Foundation. And we were talking about generally just the U.S. aid dollars going to Lesotho and kind of brainstorming on some things with that. And it got me thinking along a certain trail. And it goes back to President Trump's address to Congress. And I wanted to go over that and kind of present an idea to you. And once I get through that, it kind of led me down some rabbit holes that might be future videos. But I just wanted to start out with the idea that kind of struck me that seemed to kind of make sense of things, to me at least. So, first I want to start out with Trump, in case you haven't heard it, Trump's address to Congress, where he's discussing some of the more wasteful spending that Elon Musk and the Doge team has uncovered. Not just USAID, but they are certainly involved.
Here is one of those moments where he was talking about some of the Doge discoveries on waste, fraud, and abuse. SOT 7.
Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of.
That's it right there.
Of course, noses got out of joint with that comment, and it became, oh my goodness, how could he insult this humble country so badly? Well, let me put it to you in a little, give a little reality check here. The United States finances Lesotho, yet 90% of Americans have never heard of it. And that was the point he was making, that even though we send millions of dollars a year to Lesotho, it doesn't really affect Americans. And what happens in Lesotho really is unimportant, I'm sorry to say, to Americans who are struggling to put food on the table, keep the lights on, and keep a roof over their kids' heads. That is more important to most Americans right now. And that was the point that Donald Trump was making. It was not intended to insult Lesotho. It was intended to bring to the point that Americans need to focus on America right now. And once we do, and once we fix us, we'll be more than happy to once again become the bank of the world, which is the only real good that the world sees us as. But, as I said, many people have their nose out of joint over this comment, and I'd like you to listen to this little clip coming from, I believe it's South African. I believe it's a South African TV show, but you'll see why in a minute.
Moving on now, U.S. President Donald Trump is once again making headlines for his disregard for African nations. This time, it is for his outright dismissal of the existence of Lesotho, a small but sovereign country in southern Africa. During an address to the U.S. Congress, President Trump mocked Lesotho, which is surrounded by South Africa, as a country, quote-unquote, nobody has ever heard of. Trump, who has made derogatory remarks against African nations in the past, highlighted the landlocked African country in southern Africa as he listed what he claimed were wasteful U.S. aid projects.
$1 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real.
His remarks immediately sparked a social media debate, with many users questioning where Lesotho was located. Others expressed shock at President Trump's distasteful comments, which drew laughter from U.S. lawmakers. But while many took offense, some seized the opportunity to create memes mocking Trump's lack of geographical awareness. One user even suggested that Lesotho be renamed as Trumputu. Meanwhile, others defended Trump, questioning how U.S. aid was being used in the country. Quashing President Trump's claims, the main LGBTQ organization in the country, known as the People's Matrix, said on Wednesday it had not received $8 million in U.S. funding, adding it did not know who received or was going to receive that money. Now, Lesotho is a landlocked country surrounded by South Africa, with a population of about 2.3 million people. The country gained independence from Britain in 1966 and functions as a constitutional monarchy. Despite its natural beauty and unique mountainous landscape, Lesotho faces severe public health challenges, including one of the highest HIV/AIDS rates in the world. The United States has been a key partner in fighting the epidemic, providing crucial medication and social support, including targeted programs for sexual minorities who often face stigma and discrimination. Since 2006, the United States has reportedly committed more than $630 million to an anti-HIV/AIDS effort in Lesotho. And just last year, the U.S. also signed a $300 million deal to promote health and crop production in Lesotho. Now, beyond healthcare, the U.S. has also tried to promote trade facilitation, renewable energy development, good governance, and disaster risk reduction in the southern African country. However, since Trump's return to the White House in January, foreign aid to countries like Lesotho has come under immense scrutiny. Trump has ordered a 90-day freeze on foreign aid, a move that has already led to thousands of U.S.-funded health workers losing their jobs across Africa and clinics being forced to close their doors. In Lesotho alone, over 1,500 health workers, about 7% of the country's entire health staff, have already been dismissed. Faced with a growing health crisis, Lesotho's health ministry has called on final-year medical students and recent graduates to volunteer at local health centers, hoping to fill the gap left by the layoffs. So as the debate over U.S. foreign aid continues, Lesotho finds itself unexpectedly in the spotlight. But beyond the political controversy, thousands of lives hang in the balance as funding cuts take effect. Will this be a temporary pause or a permanent shift in U.S. policy?
Now, I would suggest to this woman, and I don't know her name, and to be quite honest, I don't really care. I would suggest, why do they care if most Americans have never heard of them? Why do they care if the American president insults them? I mean, really, if they are such a driving force in the world today, why do they care? Well, let me tell you why they care. They care because if no one's heard of them, then they can't get money. Okay? I mean, that's the bottom line. And I have to be honest, the rabbit hole I went down with all this stuff, the amount of money that has trickled out, forget trickled, that has flown out of the United States over the last decade or so, I'm just beyond disgusted. And so for any of them to criticize anything that we ever do, I would really say, great, pay back the money and then we'll be nicer. Because until then, I really don't think you have anything to say. Anyway, sorry. That's just my bias. It's just, you'll see. You'll see where I'm going with this. But back onto this topic, because that's for the next video. But back onto this topic. What I noticed about this was where it said that the LBGQT, whatever, that the leader of that think tank, or the leader of that organization in Lesotho, said, well, we never got $8 million. Huh. Well, now, isn't that interesting? the organization that supposedly we were giving this funding to never got the money. Huh. Well, doesn't that make everybody wonder where the money went? And that made me start thinking about why Trump, who's a very smart man and is usually thinking a few steps ahead of us, why would he do this knowing that there was a good chance that this whole Lesotho, everyone was going to be insulted and everyone would be pissed off? He could have said that differently. He didn't. Why? And that made me start thinking of our dear buddy Harry. You remember a couple of months ago when Eric Trump gave an interview and he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said something along the lines of, my father has too many important things to worry about Prince Harry and what he's up to. And I remember everybody said, oh, that's it. Trump's not going to do anything. There's no hope. Harry's stuck here. We're stuck with Harry. We're stuck with Meghan. And I remember my first thought was, the best way to make someone make a mistake, to make someone that you are kind of observing and setting a trap for, the best way to get them to make a mistake is to make them feel safe. And if Harry isn't worried that Trump is out to get him, then he's not going to be very careful about what he does. I mean, that's just my opinion, but that was my immediate first thought when I heard, everybody getting upset because, Eric Trump had said this. Now, thinking of that, thinking along those lines, that's my mindset going into listening to what he said at the address, where he said this thing about Lesotho. Why Lesotho? Why out of all? And let me tell you, if you look through the stuff that Doge has been finding, he could have picked out any random country and said, and any of those programs, which were, as ridiculous as the transgender mice, he could have picked out a lot of things. Did he particularly pick out one that dealt with Lesotho? And I believe he did. And here's why. Trump making this comment saying, my dad's got bigger fish to fry. Then you start to see in the news a lot of talk about a state visit where Trump is going to go over to the UK to meet with King Charles. And then, a lot is being made of this traditional alliance between the United States and the UK, that we are cousins, brothers of the same mother kind of thing, that we are one and the same. You got Keir Starmer coming over here claiming to have, something just as good as the First Amendment in the UK, which is nonsense, but okay. And then you have, on top of all this, when Trump goes over to the UK, he actually sits down with Prince William and not with King Charles. Now, I've said it before. I am not saying that King Charles is not sick. I'm not saying that it's all just a ploy or anything like that. But I do think that King Charles, it's not beyond him to use his illness when it will benefit him. And I think that we saw that when, he said basically, well, I'm out of touch for the next couple days, because he didn't want to have to make a comment on Centavali or anything. And then you have him not being able to meet with President Trump. It's kind of, he's able to do some things and not others. And if he used that strategically, I would expect nothing else. He's a head of state. He's got an illness that he can use strategically from time to time. He's going to do it. Fine. It happens, and it happened, I believe. I believe that there is a certain look to kind of guilt, kind of remind people of this relationship between the U.S. and the UK. And I believe that it is to keep Trump from going after Harry. It's subtle. It's there. You have to understand that these diplomats, they're going to do these things. Now, is it just do I know this for a fact? No, of course not. This is just my guess. This is how I am interpreting things. This is my opinion, and you should go out, do your own research, and form your own conclusions. But I see it as there is a bit of subconscious pressure being put on Trump to leave Harry alone. You see it with the visa case. You see, there's a lot of different times and ways that we're seeing this happen. And I just get that feeling. Now, if you take that and Trump says, okay, I can't directly go after this guy, even though I know what him and his wife are doing. And I believe that they are doing it with the agreement and the consent of the royal family. So what else can I do? So what does he do? He goes out and he does an address to Congress. And the one country that he mentions, well, not the one country, but one of the countries that he mentions is Lesotho. I don't think that was a coincidence. I think that he did that as a breadcrumb. Most American journalists, before they could write a single word about what Trump was saying, they had to go out and find out where Lesotho is. And in case you don't know, I think I played it in one of the things, right? It's a landlocked country in the midst of South Africa. And I guarantee most of the journalists had to go out and find out where Lesotho is. They had to go search things out in order to find out what country it was that Trump was mocking, as Trump knew they would. And if you search enough, guess what you come up with? Eventually, if you search for the term Lesotho enough, and aid and what sort of aid we're giving to Lesotho, look whose name you will eventually find. Yeah, that's right, because eventually you'll find Prince Harry. So was that a breadcrumb that Trump was leaving journalists to look into what Harry is doing in Lesotho, this country that we're giving all this money to? I think it was. And lo and behold, before too long, we get a whole lot of Lesotho in the news, right? Because out comes Dr. Sophie with her story about Sentabali. Do I think that was encouraged? Potentially by the U.S. administration? Absolutely. Again, President Trump could not go directly after Harry. To do so and to do it publicly would mean that he was essentially insulting King Charles and Prince William. So he didn't. Instead, he left the breadcrumbs for people to find. What do you find? You look up Lesotho. Who do you find? You find Prince Harry. You hear about Sentabali now. So, they already had Lesotho in their heads. Now they hear about Sentabali, which is happening in Lesotho. And where was the polo match? Oh, the polo match just happened to be in Florida, right near where Trump lives. Okay? He's leaving a trail for people to follow, so he doesn't have to be the one to call out Harry. If the media does it, then he doesn't have to. And then no one can say, well, why'd you do this to my son? Or why'd you do this to my brother? Do you see what he's doing here? He's creating reasons for people to talk about and think about Lesotho in order to create a trap for Harry. And what comes next?
Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Clarisse Fortuné and these are the headlines. Lesotho is slapped with the White House's highest tariff rates released by President Donald Trump. The U.S. has a big trade deficit with Lesotho, which sells textiles and diamonds to America. The future of the trade deal, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, is now into question. Other American measures having an impact on the continent. The USAID, France 24, caught up with the State Department's deputy spokesperson, who says the U.S. just wants to ensure that it's being spent in the right way.
Biggest takeaway from that. Because you know what I noticed? I noticed we have a trade deficit with them because they're rich in diamonds and textiles. So why the hell are we giving them millions of dollars a year to take care of their own people? Why don't they take care of their own people? Who's going to turn around and give to the American people when we can't take care of our own people? Who's going to take care of them? Is Europe going to come in and start giving aid to the U.S.? No. And neither is Africa. But this is a country that most likely does not need all of these donations. What they need is for their own government to stop taking all of the profits of the country and start taking care of its own people. That's not our job. That's theirs. But what is Trump doing? Trump's bringing this all up, bringing this out. So people are thinking, once again, Lesotho, look, they have all this money. But wait a minute, isn't Harry involved in a charity in Lesotho? And aren't we spending billions of dollars and millions of dollars here and there and everywhere? He's putting out the pieces for people to follow so that he doesn't have to be the one to create any kind of a disturbance between the US and the UK. That pressure that the UK has been putting on Trump not to do anything that would harm our historic alliance. Well, Trump's hitting right back and doing it under the radar and putting it out there so that he can't be blamed for it. That's my theory, my supposition. Do your own research and form your own conclusions, of course, but that's just what I feel. Now, would I have said this a year ago? No. And to be quite honest with you, until about a year or two ago, I believed there was a conspiracy theory concerning JFK's assassination, but I really wasn't too, convinced that there was any other such conspiracies, really. That was like the only one that I would have bought. Now? Yeah, no, they're everywhere. And it's not me saying that they're everywhere, it's me finding them everywhere and then saying, holy crap. And I've said this a few times in the last couple months. I don't live in the world I thought I did. And the more my eyes are opening up to it, the more I am seeing of these very careful, strategic, diplomatic moves that especially Trump is making. And here, even William was making a strategic diplomatic move there. He's like, forget my dad. You're going to have to deal with me. And that was a very clear statement on William's part. And good for him. Good for him for making that statement. Because I bet Trump felt better meeting with William than he would have meeting with King Charles. But that's just my guess. Based on King Charles's politics that he claims he doesn't have, but he does. Now, this all led me down a very deep rabbit hole of the U.S. aid situation. And as bad as I have felt U.S. aid is, apparently there's something worse. And it's called the Millennium Challenge Corporation. And that is another U.S. government agency, U.S. taxpayer funded, and they stopped sending money through USAID to a lot of places. And USAID is only half the battle, people. There's this Millennium Challenge Corporation, and I think it's 10 times worse. So that's the other rabbit hole that I went down, and I'm going to save that for another video, because that's going to be a whole bunch in and of itself. But I just wanted to start with this, and while I have you here, I have a couple other little clips, or a couple other little bits of information that I wanted to share, because I still had the time in this video and I won't in the next one. I saw that Meghan decided to show up in one of her as ever tablecloths at a Broadway show. Now there's a couple things about this. First of all, this is an exact example of everything that I've been talking about in my Quid Pro Quo series. This is Audra something. I'm sorry, I don't remember her name. It's really not important. But this is someone who is a WME client as well as Meghan. And this is someone who I guarantee is going to show up somewhere along the line, either on With Love Meghan or on the podcast, because this is what Meghan does. She gives their events publicity. I guess what? The musical Gypsy? She gives their events publicity just by showing up, looking ridiculous in a tablecloth, and in exchange, they do something for her. Don't worry, this is not one-sided. This is not Meghan doing this out of the goodness of her heart, nor this other woman doing it out of the goodness of her heart, just because they're both WME clients. No, this is a transaction, and something is going to come of it where down the line, this woman is then going to lend support to Meghan. You'll see. Now, the other thing that's very interesting about this is, I've said it before, I live in northern New Jersey. When I was doing my drone videos, on a clear night, if I go to the highest point in my town, I could look out and see New York City. That's how close I am. And I'm telling you, it rained from the evening of, I believe it was Tuesday, April 8th. It rained from that day until Saturday morning, which today is the 12th, or today's the 13th. It rained until the 12th. So I'm telling you, we had days upon days of rain in this area for the past week. So immediately, when I saw the photos of Meghan outside the Broadway theater, the first thing I thought was, this didn't happen. Or it didn't happen when she says it did. Because it was pouring that night. When she would have been exiting the Broadway show, I was out walking my dog around midnight. It was pouring, and it had been for hours. And someone said to me, 20 miles from New York City, that's ages away. The weather can be different between Midtown and downtown. Okay, whatever. Yes, but when it's been raining for days, it's not going to stop on a dime. And if it's raining for days, it's not going to stop at the Hudson River. I promise you that. And if you see, it's not just the fact that it was not physically downpouring as it was as I was walking my dog over Meghan. Nobody's holding an umbrella. Nobody's, expecting the potential for rain in any way, shape, or form. And let me tell you, that day they would have been. And even if you want to say, okay, maybe it was, a brief break in the storm of days, fine. But if you look at this photo of the motorcade, none of the streets are wet. It had been raining for days. Trust me, when it's raining for days, it doesn't dry up that quickly in the city. Because there's so much constant traffic and all those cars have the water on them. Trust me. If it had been raining at all, those roads would have been wet. The cars would have been wet. Nothing is wet. It was not that night. Now, when was she in New York? Well, she was in New York when she was with Drew Barrymore on March 6th, right? Ironically, a clear as can be weather on March 6th, but also a little bit cooler, where you might think that it's okay to wear a houndstooth black and white long ankle-length skirt to go out in the evening. Do you see where I'm going with this? And why this is important is because if Meghan wasn't here on April 10th, I believe she said, April 10th, then why is she releasing it on April 11th? Well, is it to cover up for Bali? Is it to cover up what Harry's doing in the Ukraine? Was it to compete with Harry in the Ukraine? Who the heck even knows anymore? It's just the fact that they are never honest. They hold things back. They hold stories back. And the media gladly releases it no matter when it actually happened. And say, she says it happened on the 10th, print it for the 10th. I mean, nobody in New York saw them. It actually even says in the article that other theater goers didn't even know she was there. Well, of course they didn't even know she was there because she wasn't. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's true. She wasn't there that night. And so any theater goer, they would have to make sure that got out, that most of the theater goers, so that any other theater goers that were there and said she wasn't there, they would say, well, yeah, look what they said. Look, nobody even knew she was there. They have to explain to any of those theater goers why they missed her when, she was supposedly there. It's all a game. It's all playing up her optics, saving it for when it's going to help her the most. Also, I would like to say thank you to all of you that came into my watch party the other day. Listen, it was absolutely spur of the moment, and really it was me just practicing. Don't feel that you need to watch it, honestly, if you weren't there. The best part of it was the chat, which was happening live. The actual what was happening in the court case with Harry, it wasn't that exciting. So it was more we were having a lot of fun chatting with each other. I had a great time, and they did remind me I need to do more lives, which is why tomorrow I am going to do a live, and I am going to do it at 7:30 tomorrow. I want to try and make something regular as far as the day, but the time I'm still playing with. I mean, sometimes I work then, sometimes I don't. So I'm going with 7:30 tomorrow, and we'll take it from there and see how that goes. But what I want to do is I want to start out with the last video of the Quid Pro Quo series, and then we can have just a general chat and a discussion about it. But those of you that came and joined me in my impromptu watch party, I appreciated it so much. I really didn't have anything prepared. It was just kind of a spur of the moment because I really just wanted to practice how to do one. And now that I have, I feel like I could do a watch party in the future if there was something exciting going on or whatever. But I didn't want to wait until there was something that I wanted to do a watch party for, because if I was trying to learn it then and I screwed it up, then we would have missed whatever it was. So this was something that was kind of a throwaway event. It was interesting and all, but we had a lot of fun chatting, and that was really the more important thing, and I got to practice how to do one. So thank you very much to all of you that came, and I promise watch parties in the future would be a little bit more prepared and a little bit more, I mean, I was switching streams. It was definitely practice. So thank you very much for having patience with me on that. And I hope you all enjoyed it too. So come join me Monday night. I am going to do a live. And today, I hope you enjoyed this. I look forward to reading your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you very much for listening. And I hope you have a great day filled with love, laughter, and of course, dancing in the rain.
Dancing in the rain.